Welcome to the 2021 California Forum for Diversity in Graduate Education. I am grateful to the Forum for creating this opportunity for over 2,000 underrepresented BIPOC and first-generation students to gather, share experiences, and learn about the opportunities available to you. Now, more than ever, as our nation and planet are grappling with the multiple crises of racial injustice, anti-democratic forces, climate change, and the health and economic impacts of the pandemic, we need your vision, talent, and brilliance. Armed with a master's or doctorate, you are truly the generation who has been called to change the world. We've heard a lot of names for this generation of college students, like the COVID generation or Gen Z. But I've coined my own term, Gen U, for the unstoppable generation. You have weathered the emotional impact of studying during the lockdown. You've had to reimagine your research and classwork online, and you've done it in incredibly creative ways. Now, I'm sure you're thinking about your next steps and whether further study should be a part of your journey. Let me share a personal story. I was one of a tiny number of students from my local public school who got into Cambridge University, one of the top 2 universities in the UK. I studied Spanish and German literature and philosophy, partly because I wanted to imagine my life beyond the borders of the small world I was raised in. In my senior year, one of my professors invited me to apply for the PhD program in modern languages. I turned him down because I wanted to be in the world, making a difference, not stuck in what I perceived as an ivory tower. At Cambridge, the term town versus gown indicated the gap between students and the surrounding communities that struggled with racism and economic injustice. I left the gown to work with and alongside the town. I became a community development officer working for the city council, and later became the coordinator of a non-profit serving Black women and their children. Yet, as I and local women of color organized against the daily onslaught of poverty, violence, and crisis, I began to ask myself, why? Why did these deep chasms of economic inequality exist? What was the connection between the violence and trauma I witnessed in the community and histories of racism? I decided to stop doing metaphorical firefighting, fighting a new blaze every time one was quenched, and to find answers to my questions. I went back to university and completed a graduate diploma in community practice, a master's in race and ethnic studies, and then a PhD in sociology. Gradually, I began to find answers and see how communities could come together to demand justice and mobilize towards solving the complex intersectional problems they faced. My educational experience was transformative and propelled me to publish the first in a series of books on state violence in all its forms and how women of color activists are confronting power and building alternative radical futures. Oh, and along the way, I became a warrior for educational equity, opening doors for students like you to receive a transformative and relevant education that can propel you to find your calling and unlock your potential. My graduate school attendance is having a long-term intergenerational impact on my family. My wife was inspired to pursue a doctorate in education and now trains hundreds of educators across the nation in trauma-informed education. And my 11-year-old daughter has already decided that she's going to study human rights and environmental law so that she can defend our planet and the communities impacted by climate change and the destruction of fragile ecosystems. When we get educated, our families and communities are lifted up by our education too. I understand that the obstacles to a graduate education, especially a doctorate, are very real. It's hard to invest in the future when the bills need to be paid today, when family members depend on us, or when the future seems so uncertain. There are also real barriers to being admitted to prestigious graduate programs related to race and racism, as well as structural barriers like the disparate impact of the GRE. These obstacles show in the numbers. Students of color are significantly underrepresented in the graduate student population, particularly in STEM fields. And African American students still only account for 6.1% of all incoming graduate students at doctoral universities with high research activities. There is hope, however. Enrollment by underrepresented students of color is slowly growing. Nevertheless, BIPOC and first-gen students are wise to consider the track record of any university you may consider in terms of access, equity, inclusion, and faculty diversity. At USF, we recognize the barriers facing underrepresented students and have taken concrete steps to address them. USF was ranked #1 for student racial and ethnic diversity in the 2021 US News & World Report, tied with 3 other schools. We work hard to address students' financial need. In 2021, we awarded a total of 3,311 graduate students with $100 million in financial aid. During the COVID pandemic, we raised additional emergency funds from donors. This fall, we awarded more than 4,000 students with additional gift and federal relief funds. At USF, we also recognize the intergenerational economic impact of anti-Black racism. Our Black Achievement, Success, and Engagement program provides an economic hardship fund for both undergraduate and graduate students whose financial situation is impacting their holistic wellness or their ability to stay enrolled at USF. At USF, we believe that success is holistic and includes mental, physical, and spiritual thriving. Our cultural centers provide a safe, supportive space for undergraduate and graduate students of color and first-gen students to connect with each other and receive academic, emotional, and spiritual mentoring and support. We recognize that you are more than your test scores, and the standardized test scores are not correlated with graduate student success. Our School of Education discontinued use of the GRE and MAT tests in 2020 as part of our commitment to advance justice through education. Other programs utilize a holistic review to ensure that we see the breadth and complexity of your accomplishments in and out of the classroom. Let me leave you with a few parting lessons from my own journey, from community organizer to doctoral student to professor and now provost and vice president of academic affairs. First, take time to discern your calling and then pursue it with confidence and passion. Commit to yourself not to let roadblocks get in the way of your path, even when at times the way ahead seems murky. Second, surround yourself with people who believe in you and your dream. In my journey, I encountered educators who didn't believe that a Black girl could go to college or that a Black college student could excel in German philosophy. We don't need everyone to believe in us. We just need to tune into our cheerleaders and tune out our naysayers. Third, be adaptable, agile, and creative. Look to your ancestors for stories of inspiration, of overcoming, of adapting to seemingly impossible circumstances, and not only surviving, but thriving. In closing, I hope that some of you will consider joining USF's radically inclusive, social justice-oriented community dedicated to changing the world from here. Wherever your journey takes you, please add me to the roster of people who believe in you, who see your light, your potential, your brilliance. With us surrounding you, you are sure to succeed.